Good evening. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the Arduous Performing Arts Center and the Community Library, I welcome you all to this Ketchum Mayoral debate. My name is Jenny Emery Davidson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Community Library. We are pleased to present a forum for civil discourse around the issues and leadership that shape the community we share. There are 4 candidates in the election for the mayor of the city of Ketchum: David Baravetto, Peter Boyle.
Perry Boyle.
Perry Boyle.
That's okay.
My biggest fear, you know, I called John Kerry by the wrong name when he spoke at the library. That's my biggest fear, is to keep y'all straight tonight. Neil Bradshaw and Spencer Cordovano. Thank you to the candidates for your interest in public service and for your willingness to participate in this public forum. Our goal, Our goal for this forum is to promote respectful dialogue between the candidates and community members. The program will proceed as follows. Each candidate will get 2 minutes at the outset to introduce himself and make opening remarks. Then I will propose 4 or 5 questions to the candidates, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. My questions are intended to break the ice, to get the conversation going, and to introduce a variety of topics and issues for consideration. We hope that the 90-second time frame for answers will allow for some nuance and development in each candidate's response, and also allow us to move through a variety of questions with some efficiency in what is only an hour and a half. There is a timekeeper here, my colleague Carter Hedberg, who will give each candidate a signal when 10 seconds are remaining. Do you want to hold up the sign so they see this is what it will look like? And then we'll signal when the time is up and the candidate must stop talking. I am going to draw names randomly. This is not so I can check your tonsils throughout the evening, but how I'm going to draw names randomly with each question so that we just go in a random order in determining in which, the order in which each candidate addresses each question. Close to 6:45 or 6:50, we will open the forum to questions from the audience. Now, we have both live members in attendance here at the Arduous and audience members participating online. For audience members here on site, you received, I hope, an index card when you arrived. You may write a question on that index card at any time during the forum, and if you have already done so, you can go ahead and then pass it to the end of the aisle closest to me. So this side, and we have runners, Martha Williams and Margaret Hamamoto are collecting those, and Pam Parker, it looks like. So just wave your hand, pass them to the side. You can do that now, and you can do it at any time throughout the forum this evening. At the top of the card, you'll notice that there are categories for different topic areas that we imagine could arise. If you choose to check that, it will just help us in sorting them. Our goal through the questions will be to get to as much of a variety as possible. So that will just help us with the sorting. For audience members live streaming, you can type questions into the chat function. They will be received by staff members and contributed on a card to the collection of questions. The staff members will sort those questions, trying to cover as much breadth as possible. They will hand the questions to me, and I will present the questions to each of the candidates. Then at 7:25, each candidate will get 1 minute to make closing remarks, and we will close at 7:30 p.m. So for the audience here, please remember to adhere to the Arduous's COVID protocols and keep your mask completely on your face throughout the program. I also want to point out that in the case of an emergency, there are additional exits on the other side of the stage. And I also want to ask if everybody could please refrain from applause or commentary during any candidate's response. This will now allow us, again, we only have an hour and a half. We would like to cover as much territory as possible, so to create a respectful atmosphere and also to promote the efficiency of the program, please refrain from applause and any commentary during each candidate's response. Also, if you can turn off your cell phones. All right, everybody ready? So we'll begin with, again, 2 minutes, Carter, for each candidate's introduction and opening remarks. And we will start with Perry.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny, and thanks to the can you hear me? Okay. Thanks to the Arduous for hosting this and the Community Library for co-sponsoring it. I think this is an important evening. I do feel, you mentioned civil discourse, and I do feel I have to start with just addressing some of the very disturbing things that have been said about me. And let me set the record straight on that. During my 38 years of private and public sector work, including 15 years at a hedge fund, I built a reputation as a person of integrity, of intelligence, of creativity, and of innovation. During my tenure at the hedge fund, I was an active mentor to dozens of people at all levels in their careers. Seeing no diversity around me, I built the first diversity hiring and training program in the industry. My reputation in the business world is stellar, which is why the federal government requested that I help transform that company during their oversight period. I'm deeply saddened that cancel culture has hit Ketchum. I thought this community was better than that. I know we're better than that. And after listening carefully, I think I know where this comes from. It comes from fear. Fear that you're losing control of what makes Ketchum special. I understand that. After listening to the community, I think our priorities should be oriented around protecting the character of Ketchum, which I think is 3 things in the near term. First, stopping the takeover of town by short-term rentals that unhouse our working people. Secondly, moving to get workforce housing solutions implemented today, not years from now, so that our businesses can stay open and our workers can live where they work. And then third, changing our government, how our government is run, so that big changes don't take people by surprise, but rather are reflective of all the voices of the community. Thank you. That gets you.
Thank you. And next up, Spencer.
Thanks, Jenny. Ketchum builds kids that show up. The old guard already had a chance, and it's time to let the youth lead. We're here. We're hungry. We're educated. We understand how cell phones and data works, and that's the future. cutting-edge technology is the answer. The first wave just crashed on our heads. Are you going to scoot your chair back, or are you going to head right into the next set with me? There's already a few gray hairs in here. Let me go gray over something that matters, the sake of our town. I want to make it my job to ensure its future. Who's going to be the guy? Who's going to be the guy who has Ketchum's back once you go into that back room and the doors close? Who can you count on? Who's going to be the guy who can create the change and think outside the mold? I can't accept the idea that we live in a town where the guy who spends the most money on his campaign wins, and that we continue to fall victim to the machine. Not this town, not this community. Here, we're friends and family. Here, we have the smartest minds, just down the street. I have a plan ready to be implemented, and I'm going to tell you all about it tonight. It's a little bit of everything. No one's right. There's definitely a wrong way, but no one's right. It's not one simple solution. I feel the struggles of this town more than any other candidate on this stage. I've seen the change, and I'm here for each and every one of you. As mayor, if elected, I will have a team of 60 city employees who represent our town and our interests. Yes, I have a lot to learn. Yes, I'm up for the challenge. Yes, I own property within the city limits. Yes, I want to ensure that your kids have the same options growing up that I was treated to here.
Thank you. And now David. David.
A lot of things should happen when you acquire real estate. Timing should be perfect. Expectations should be great. The architect you hire to help you through the planning stage should have recognizable talent, should be wise beyond his age, should have 50 years experience developing clients' dreams, delivering the spaces sought and made within their means, should have 100 happy homeowners to testify his skill from a cozy creekside cabin to the last home on a hill, should be a sentinel on the job site, precision within each trade, protecting the client's investment until the welcome mat gets laid. Your future home should nestle like a cottage in a meadow. The architect you hire should be David Baravetto. I am an architect. I'm a second-generation Italian architect. I've been creating architecture in the community for 50 years, and I've never had a lawsuit. I've been a little bit intimidated about the possibility of taking office. However, I recognize it's a job of architecture. You identify the issues, you explore the potential, you deal with the options, you make decisions, and you proceed with a team that can carry the project through. I plan on doing that. I will follow through with everything I begin, and I have created a number of issues in the past, and I look forward to working for you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Neil.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you to the Arduous for hosting this, and thank you to all of you for coming out to hear what we have to say. My name is Neil Bradshaw, and I'm seeking a re-election for a second term of Mayor of Ketchum. 4 years ago, I ran on a campaign for Ketchum that was vibrant, connected, sustainable, and safe. In 4 short years, we've made great progress in all those categories. We're making our town more vibrant. We now have more than 100 units of workforce housing constructed or in development. We've successfully secured a housing tax credit that raised an equivalent of $12 million towards workforce housing. We have reimagined the light industrial area and created an additional height for small unit housing. Outside of our many housing initiatives, we've amplified events, added pickleball courts, and funded permanent interactive public art. We have made our town more connected. Connection is about serving you better, with more communication and more transparency. It's also about being physically connected through our trails and sidewalks, as well as emotionally connected to our history and heritage. Ultimately, connection builds community. In my time as mayor, we have found a new home for City Hall, launched a new award-winning city website, regularly communicated through our engaging bi-weekly newsletter, Word on the Street. Furthermore, we've held more than 40 open houses and stakeholder events. We've made great progress on sustainability initiatives. Most notable is the replacement of the Ketchum Springs line, 6 miles of pipeline that was old and obsolete, and is now causing losses of 350 million gallons per year and reducing electricity costs by $50,000 per year. The replacement of that line took 4 years, took extensive planning, but has made a huge difference. Sustainability really matters. That's why I brought my own water bottle tonight, by the way. We at the city do not use plastic water bottles. Finally, we've made great strides in public safety. Following the successful $11.5 million fire bond measure in 2019, Ketchum Fire 2.0 is now completed with the construction of state-of-the-art fire station, a new ladder truck, new brush truck, and new training facility.
And that's the end. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you for listening, and I look forward to addressing your questions this evening.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening remarks. We'll now move into several questions that I'll pose to you, and remember, we're allowing 90 seconds. So 90 seconds, Carter, for your responses to each of these questions. And I want to start with, this is a job, this is a position that serves the community. So let's dissect what community means. Could each of you describe in more detail your understanding of the composition of the community of Ketchum? What are the demographics and the social and economic sectors of the community as you see it? And how are you hearing from all of these different voices to inform your positions on what the community needs? Neil.
Thank you, Jenny. The heart and soul of Ketchum is our community. The locals who live here, people who work here, the people who visit here, and the people who have a second home here. These are the people who all make up our community. It's the way we interact, it's the way we greet each other, it's the way we smile at each other every day, and it's the way we convey that to all our visitors. Because ultimately, our economy is all about our visitors and our tourism. And if we're a happy, healthy bunch, we're going to make it a great experience for everyone else. The best way that we can kind of really involve people is to build connection. And that's something that I've worked on from the very first day. We've had these open houses, we've had these public meetings, we've obviously been struggled with COVID, and so we've gone to more online surveys. But building connection, getting people in a room, sharing ideas, that's how we do it. It's not an ivory tower in City Hall. In fact, one of the things I said is when I first got elected is we're going to put a welcome mat outside City Hall. We've put a welcome mat outside City Hall, and that welcome mat is now actually worn down, and my wife has now bought a new one to put outside the new City Hall. So that's how we connect, and that's how we grow as a community.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat the question. Could you describe in more detail your understanding of the composition of the community of Ketchum? What are the demographics and the social and economic sectors of the community? How are you hearing from all of those different voices to inform your positions on what the community needs? I'll repeat it for each candidate. Spencer.
Thanks, Jenny. As many of you have heard me say, and I'll elaborate on now, I have my finger on the pulse of this community. I know what each demographic wants. You've got the kids, you've got the hairdressers, you've got the NIMBYs, you've got the grandmas. We have a wide community here, and they're all valued members of my community. I rely on each of them equally for the reasons that I love to call Ketchum home. The community is our fabric. They run our small businesses. They run our large businesses. They do business out of town. They do worldly business. They sit on boards of national foundations of every flavor and every genre. We have the smartest minds here. I grew up hanging out in their mansions. I grew up flying on their private planes. I love that. I grew up hanging with everybody in this community over the course of 32 years living here, and I value each of them equally. As a certified mountain guide and river guide, I know what the visitors want. I take them out into the hills. I know what they talk to me about, how town is changing, what they want to see. Can their kid come sleep on my couch next summer? Yes, there are mentors in this town that have got me where I'm going, and I want to provide that same aspect to them.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question again. Could you describe in more detail your understanding of the composition of the community? What are the demographics and the social and economic sectors of the community? How are you hearing from all of these different voices to inform your positions on what the community needs? Perry.
We're about to get the update on what the community is in terms demographically from the census, but historically this community has skewed rather old, older than the national average. I think the average age in Ketchum is around 60. That's probably come down pretty significantly with the influx of people during COVID over the past year and a half, and I think that's part of what we're feeling, is that the community has a lot of new people in it, and a lot of new people who may not understand what people who got here earlier feel about this community. And I think we have an opportunity to educate them and welcome them and bring them into the community. I think technically the word community means group of people living together. We live together surrounded by mountains in this beautiful valley. It's just paradise, as David and I were saying earlier. And our community needs to work together to keep it paradise. Right now we do have a challenge. It is the 3 jobs or 3 houses economy, and we need to invest in the middle. We need to make sure that this is a community that creates a future for our children and creates a future for people who want to build a life in this town.
Thank you. All right, one last time with this question. Could you describe in more detail your understanding of the composition of the community of Ketchum? What are the demographics and the social and economic sectors of the community? How are you hearing from all of these different voices to inform your positions on what the community needs?
When Averill Harriman picked the Wood River Valley to be the most beautiful spot in the whole Rocky Mountain region to develop a year-round resort in the desolate hills of Idaho, he picked the whole Wood River Valley, and we changed from a mining and ranching community into a hospitality community. When Bill Jantz took over in 1965, he became a developer. He developed Thousand Oaks down in Southern California, and he put the word out that he needed contractors, builders, sheetrockers, painters, electricians to come and help grow the valley. Our family began then. We became a real family. And we morphed into a community and embodied all the towns in the community. Sun Valley is the head of that community. Ketchum is the heart. Haley is the soul. And Down Valley is the strength of the community.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a follow-up to that question about your understanding of the composition of the community and ask you each to speak specifically to the approximately 25% of the county that identifies as Hispanic or Latinx. So thinking specifically of that demographic, how would you respond to hearing voices in that community? Neil.
Well, I think this is an important conversation and will be increasingly important as we become a welcoming and safe city for all our community. You know, the Latinx community is providing a lot of our workforce. It's keeping our city running. It's keeping our services running. And, you know, all I can say is that what we need to do is be aware of it, be welcoming of it, and be supportive of it in every way possible. And I'm looking to do that and will continue to do that.
Thank you. Spencer? I seem to be drawing these in the same order. So much for my random attempts. Could you speak specifically to the demographic of our community that 25% identifies as Hispanic or Latinx in the county?
Gracias, Jenny. Yo tengo muchas cosas para hablar con nuestros amigos de Latinoamérica. Pienso que es muy importante que reconocer que esta gente hace mucho trabajo aquí y otro, ellos tienen mucha corazón por nuestra comunidad. En la escuela solo hay 30% que la gente. Ahora en la escuela de Wood River hay más tan 50% que están gente ciudadanos de otro país. Cuando estoy niño aquí en Ketchum tenemos muchos amigos que fuimos a la parque de esquiando y mucho más lejos en mi vida. Fuimos a Perú para grabar una videografía y nosotros amigos que trabajan aquí en la cellar, ellos encontramos ahí y voy a un viaje muy grande con mis amigos de aquí en Perú. Gracias, Jenny.
Thank you. Okay, if we can hold the applause, we'll get through more efficiently. David, you're next. Could you speak specifically to the 25% of the community that identifies as Hispanic or Latinx?
¿Cómo no? Sí. ¿Qué onda todos? ¿Qué onda? Tengo un hijo que nació en Guadalajara en 1977, en el 1 de enero. Se llama Jalisco. Jalisco es el capital del estado de Guadalajara. Me gusta mucho la lengua español. Los latinos son muy simpáticos. Conozco muchas. Y cuando puedo hablar con esos, platicamos. Estamos todos trabajando para hacer nuestro país y nuestro county más bueno cada día. Es importante para entender, hablar y embracar todos.
Thank you. And Perry, could you speak to the approximately 25% of the county?
Supuesto. Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. That is my life saying. It means traveler, there is no road. You make the road as you go. And that's Antonio Machado, who's the great Catalan poet. I have deep ties to Latin America. I have a place in Argentina. I love the entire culture. But as to your specific question, we are dependent, highly dependent on the people who work in this community. And they take care of our houses, they take care of our kids, and we should be listening to them and finding out what they need. So I think there's a great opportunity to increase our ties throughout the community. And I think as we go through tonight, we're going to see we have a lot of, not just Ketchum problems, but county-wide and community-wide challenges that we are going to need to work together on to solve together.
Thank you. Next question, again, 90 seconds response for each of these questions. It was a dry and smoky summer this year, and we are experiencing here in central Idaho persistent drought, competing demands on water, accelerating wildfires such as the Beaver Creek Fire in 2013, the Castle Rock Fire in 2007. Could each of you talk about how is Ketchum's well-being tied to the natural environment, and what can it do to be resilient in the immediate future in the context of environmental changes? And we'll start with David. Thank goodness. If it was Neil, I would have wondered what was going on. David.
Well, the environment is important, obviously, to all of us, and it's just a matter of what we can do to keep our beautiful world as intact as possible. I recycle everything myself. I take it out to the dumps. I talk with the Gogatia family, and they will do whatever they can to help take care of the trash. It needs money. It's money. It comes down to money. We've got to do everything we can to preserve our environment for our children, for ourselves, and for our attitude. In the 50 years that I've lived here, I've noticed a perceptible sort of lack of that strong, beautiful attitude that we've always had. When the first time you enter the valley, you get the feel of the valley. It's so beautiful, and it picks up your attitude. And everything we've been suffering through for the last couple of years has beaten us up, but we cannot lose our attitude. We have to have the right attitude to do everything we can to preserve our environment and to make this as fine a place as we possibly can. It's all about the attitude, and I'm going to pump up the attitude.
Thank you. Next will be Neil. Neil, how is Ketchum's well-being tied to the natural environment, and what can it do to be resilient in the immediate future in the context of environmental changes?
Well, tourism, as I've mentioned before, is the heart of our economy in so many ways, and the impact on snow levels and on water levels, as we've seen in the summer, it can be devastating. We kind of toed through it a little bit this year. That's why I'm delighted about the actions we've taken, because I'm all about getting things done. It's not just about talking about it and talking. So what are the things we've done? We've done the Ketchum Springs line. We're now using less water than we were 4 years ago as a city because of that infrastructure project. We've now just ordered 2 new police vehicles, which are hybrids. There's the first hybrids police vehicles in the valley. We have also taken some action on specific actions, not just the LEDs and the paperless and the water bottles, but we've also insulated a bunch of the city buildings. So it's about our actions. We can go and talk about climate change and everything else at conferences, but when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of running a city, it's about actions and delivering on that and talking about performance, because that's how we lead. We lead by example. And most importantly, Ketchum Fire Station is LEED Silver. It's leading the way in how to do things properly in an environmentally sensitive way, and I'm very proud of my record on that.
Thank you. Next will be Perry. Perry, how is Ketchum's well-being tied to the natural environment, and what can we do to be resilient in the immediate future in the context of environmental changes?
Yeah, well, we're all here because of the environment and our connection to the environment, and it's part of what goes to the character of Ketchum, is how we interact with our environment. We can't do much about the smoke that comes from the west, but I agree with Neil, we can do what we can do. We can do things like require LEED certification in our building codes. And I think it's great that we have, and not just Neil, but the previous administration was very big on water and conservation of that water. We're going to need to create a bit more density in the community to lower our impact per square foot on housing. A key portion, I think, is the cars. And we need to invest in mountain rides and make that a viable alternative for working people. Not everybody who works in Ketchum is going to be able to live in Ketchum. So that's not going to be a possibility. So creating a situation where they can use public transportation, bring their tools on public transportation, bring their recreational equipment on public transportation is going to be critical. And then finally, we do have 1% for air. Air is one of the dirtiest ways to get around the world there is. We're dependent on that. We should probably be devoting some of that money to at least carbon offsets for the impact that we're having at our airport. Thank you.
Thank you. And Spencer, how is Ketchum's well-being tied to the natural environment, and what can it do to be resilient in the immediate future in the context of environmental change?
Thanks, Jenny. Ketchum's well-being is 100% tied to the outdoors. Not only that's why we live here, because we have the best access. You can't get to any other ski resort and enjoy the great outdoors in the summer or the winter like you can in Ketchum. Denver, no way. Anywhere else, you can't beat it. We are tied to the environment. Well, how do I know that? Well, my yard flooded when I was 3 years old, and we used to ride inner tubes around it, and I've watched the river change for 25 years. I've seen the forest fires take over this town. That's when I sold my first footage to Diane Sawyer out of my video business, and I got calls from scientists that were just going crazy over the swirl shot because of the humidity that was in the air and the lack of the ceiling. So water, fire, trees, and atmospheric conditions, how do those all relate? In a big way. After the forest burns, the soils become impermeable and we get flash floods like we saw at Board Ranch a couple of years. Please check out my video, Floodpocalypse, online if you haven't seen that one. It's very good. I just resold that footage the other day for a Wood River Land Trust video. What we can do is increase native landscaping. What we can do is promote backburns. We are in a good place because Castle Rock and Beaver burnt everything up. Do we enjoy the nice skiing on the back of the mountain? Yes. Is it the best thing for our community? No. Do I have a degree in environmental science and ecology from a private university on a full ride? Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to pose about 2 more questions, and then we'll be taking the questions from the audience. So remember to pass those to the aisles. Pam's raising her hand, or type them into the chat. And they are being sorted by Martha and Margaret, and they'll be bringing some up for me to pose to the candidates. Now, the next question, again, 90 seconds for the response. What do you consider the relationship to be between Ketchum and the other municipalities in Blaine County, and how does it matter? And we'll start, I'm sorry, Neil, we're not doing you. Oh my gosh, again. Spencer, I feel like it just ought to be Perry this time. Okay, Perry.
Well, we're all connected, right? And Idaho is a very strange state in some respects. You know, it's a Dillon state. The cities only have so much control over their own destiny. Some things are done at the county level, some things are done at the state level, and we don't have home rule. So it makes it very difficult for the cities to cooperate, but they need to. And we're going to need to cooperate, particularly on things like workforce housing. So if you take, for example, we do have workforce housing, a very low density around the hospital. Well, that's where the city of Sun Valley, the city of Ketchum, and the county all intersect. I know Neil has tried. It is hard to get those 3 entities to get the sewer extended to where it needs to be to increase the density there, which is an excellent place for increased density of workforce housing. We're going to need to work together on so many issues, not just housing, but transportation, and just economic development in general. As you know, it's been pointed out tonight, this is a tourism valley. Tourism is inherently boom-bust. If we can bring in more kinds of companies that aren't on the same economic cycle, that can take advantage of our air connections now and our internet, we can smooth out the economic cycle in this town and have a better future for our kids and this county. Thanks.
Thank you. Neil, what do you consider the relationship to be between Ketchum and the other municipalities in Blaine County, and how does it matter?
Well, because the mayor of Sun Valley is sitting there, I better say it's excellent, but it is excellent. It really, you know, that's something I'm kind of proud of over the last 4 years. When I first came in, they were kind of like their own little silos, and I really feel, and this is not just me, this is everyone has really created that dialogue, because we're now connecting. We're now connecting on weekly calls. We're connecting in so many other ways and sitting on mutual boards together, be it Air Service Board and others. And I think there's a very healthy respect amongst all the elected officials throughout the valley, and a real determination from everyone to try and get things done. Now, sometimes we have to tiptoe around certain issues as we realize people have different slightly different agendas. But I think everyone's working really well together. And I think, you know, tip my cap to everyone up and down Valley on everything they're trying to do. So I think we're making some headway. You know, Mountain Rides is terrific. I mean, really made some big strides there, thanks to the leadership there, but also to the collaboration amongst all the jurisdictions. Getting in new electric vehicles is fantastic. This is a kind of a big step. The coordination on the Air Service Board. And, you know, a lot of it gets sorted out because we have connected. We're not afraid to pick up the phone to each other, and we're actually delighted when we receive that call.
Thank you. Next will be Spencer. Spencer, what do you consider the relationship to be between Ketchum and the other municipalities in Blaine County, and how does it matter?
I think the biggest place that it matters is updating the Blaine County Comp Plan. The Blaine County Comp Plan has classic interpretable language in it that is furthering most of these projects from going forward. We need to accept ADUs. The zoning is way too much for them in the town in Ketchum right now to have 2 acres to allow an ADU. We need ADUs to fix the problem quickly. Jackson Hole provides free plans already city approved for ADUs. A place where Sun Valley and Ketchum are working nicely together is our minimal revenue guarantees for our air service. With the new IFR technology in place, we're going to start spending dramatically less money on these services. I'm not driving to Boise anymore. I've done that for 15 years. We want to fly in and out Sun Valley to Salt Lake. A place where we could band together is on our police services. Right now we're on a sheriff-led program through the county, and I've heard multiple gripes that we need to be able to hire and fire our own police. That's a place where Sun Valley and Ketchum can band together. Also, just a quick thank you to Sun Valley Company for putting the money up themselves for the minimal revenue guarantees. That air service traffic does a lot for us. Let's get mountain rides to be a little less frequent, a little more often, and cater a little less to the tourist and more to our workforce. We have service industry members looking for a ride home nightly.
Thank you. Thank you. And David, what do you consider the relationship to be between Ketchum and the other municipalities in Blaine County, and how does it matter?
Well, as I mentioned before, it's the embodiment of the culture of the community that is unlike any other community in Idaho. We are here, we are in the hospitality business, and we all fulfill our role. Sun Valley being the head, Ketchum being the heart. This is where the tourist meets the local. The city of Ketchum people don't understand the strength of the soul of the city of Ketchum and how vibrant it is and how fragile it is right now. And we need to take care of the people who support and interface with the tourists. Haley is the soul. It's our county government, it's the schools, it's the airport, it's the businesses. And then down valley, that's the strength of our community, of our culture. We are the skiing culture, the hospitality culture, and we all have to support ourselves. We have to communicate within the municipalities and stay in touch, meet often enough and share ideas and grow our community together. It's the only one we have, and this is a very, very vital time to deal with the crisis and issues at hand.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I'll pose one more question, and then we'll be opening it up to questions from the audience. What are you reading these days? Or what is a favorite book or program that might tell us something about your approach to leadership? Spencer.
Right now, Jenny, I'm in the middle of Aspen and the American Dream. It's the single most beneficial book that anybody in my position could be reading. We have all these ski town and mountain town problems, and you always get ski bums speaking out about it. Jenny Stuber is a University of Florida professor, and she wrote a book that analyzes recent data out of 2016 and 2000 out of Aspen. And I think the secondary title is Super Gentrification and How You Manage Income in a World of Super Gentrification. And it's definitely a lot to be learned in there. It's about planning, it's about people, it's about government. I'm almost done with it. Anybody that wants to come grab it with me is welcome. The best book on planet Earth is The Emerald Mile. It's about the fastest dory ride down the Grand Canyon. Kevin Fedarko just spoke about it the other night at the Sun Valley Center for the Arts. It poses the history all the way back to the conquistadores. And then it includes action sports and also goes through the civil engineering of the Glen Canyon Dam. It's a great read. I also did Flowers of a Dark Moon, Killer of a Dark Moon this year. That was my other one.
Thank you. Neil, what are you reading these days, and or what is a favorite book or program that might tell us something about your approach to leadership?
Yeah, quite easy to answer. The book is Our Towns. It's about this couple who fly around America and look at various towns and what's making them succeed and what's making them fail. And it's now playing to the audience a little bit. You know, one of the things they talk about is in a successful town is a good community library. They also talk about the importance of a local paper, keeping us informed and keeping us connected. Two things that we have here in this community. In terms of my philosophy and how I operate, I looked to a book called The Four Agreements. And that's everything I try and do in the way I conduct myself as mayor of Ketchum. Be impeccable with your words, never assume, never take anything personally, and do your best. And whenever I'm in a tight spot, I always think about that. That's my mantra. I say those four things because the Four Agreements has really given me some guidance into how I can operate and how I can communicate and how I can do the best for Ketchum.
Thank you. Perry, what are you reading these days, or what is a favorite book or program that might tell us something about your approach to leadership?
Yeah, so right now I'm reading a book called African Friends and Money Matters by David Morantz. I help lead a nonprofit out of Kenya, and I am painfully aware every time I go to Africa how little I know and how important it is to understand a culture and to listen. And I'm very honored now to have many African friends, and I still don't understand the money matters in Africa, but that sense of collective, of working together, of sharing, of investing in your children. I mean, these things are common around the world, but it's very hard to accumulate capital in Africa because you have to share everything that you make. And we have a similar challenge here. It's very hard for the city to accumulate capital to invest in some of its problems, and I'm hoping we're going to get some questions about how we're going to invest and where we're going to find the money to do this. But that's the book I'm reading now.
Thank you.
Great question from a librarian.
And David, what are you reading these days, or what is a favorite book or program that might tell us something about your approach to leadership?
The book I'm reading and I really enjoy is The Story of Sun Valley. I work as the ambassador up at the Roundhouse in the wintertime, and I like to dip into the story of Sun Valley and all the ways it grew up, and the Austrian influence coming over here with Count Felix Sofgotch and the Nazi influence that they had, and the way they were trying to manipulate the Hollywood community as to the value of fascism. Not so much in those words, but it was an interesting community when Count Felix Sofgotch, who actually found Sun Valley, brought the first ski instructors back from Austria, and they were introduced to the miners and ranchers in the community, and you could just imagine the type of things that went on in that period. The influence they had, another story, you could just imagine what it was like on January 7th, 1941. December 7th, pardon me, 1941, when all of a sudden they were persona non grata, and they had to make some decisions. Some stayed, others went back. Count Felix got killed on the Russian front, so he must not have done a very good job of it.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for your reading recommendations. And now I'm turning to Martha for the first questions from the audience, and I'll remind you, you can keep submitting them, so write them on your card. If you pass them to the side, runners are coming, they can grab them, and you can also online submit them via the live stream chat, and those are being received by staff members as well. All right, so first question from the audience. What would you do on your first day as mayor? David, I feel like this better be you. Just because I'm not choosing you one time for the first one. Perry, you're the one.
Can you be like the Moneyball person? You know, I've already started. So the election is part of the process, but I've been going to a lot of city meetings. I think I've been to more city meetings in the past year than all the candidates combined, which is quite an experience, let me tell you. And then after the election, I think it's really important for whoever gets elected to hit the ground running. And I have my own little work plan about how I'm going to hit the ground running there. First of all, I think it's important for the mayor to know the team on the field and to make sure that they're motivated and excited about working. And we're really lucky in this town that we have a terrific bunch of people in City Hall. And then, you know, I don't know what you're legally allowed to do during that transition period. So I'd want to meet with the city attorney and find that out. But I have an extremely high sense of urgency. And, you know, I come from a private sector background. I've taken that sense of urgency into the nonprofit sector, and I would take that sense of urgency into our local government because we have needs that need to be addressed today. Thanks.
Thank you. David, what would you do on your first day as mayor?
Well, the first day as mayor, I'm going to make some evaluation as to the strength of the existing staff members and where we need to go in order to strengthen some areas and put other areas off to the side. Number one, we have to get some sort of a manager of our housing development. We have to get a czar. I took last weekend off and traveled over to Park City and Jackson Hole and talked to the czar, so to speak, of the housing directors in Park City. And he was a wealth of information. And it's that type of person that we need to focus specifically on the needs. And I have a plan in mind that I've talked about, and it could be a wonderful solution that could really impact the housing needs that we have. We need to evaluate all the options we have and make some decisions and proceed in abundance.
Thank you. Neil, what would you do on your first day as mayor?
Well, I know it's self-serving, but I think continuity is key. We have an incredible team that we've assembled over the last 4 years working as staff in City Hall. We have a council that is working together in a very respectful way. They're not always agreeing with each other, but they're definitely working together. And ultimately, they're the people making the decisions. And what we want to do is have a really respectful conversation. And I think I facilitate that in a very thoughtful and welcoming way. And so we're going to hit the ground running because we're already there. And I think there's a lot of projects that we have in place, whether it be the Warm Springs Preserve, the completion of Bluebird, and a number of different, the in lieu housing fees, the appointment of the housing department, which I'm delighted that the county, that the council have agreed to fund. So this is all very exciting stuff, and we've really got a momentum now on housing because people have now realized the impact to them when their favorite restaurant is closed on a Monday night or what have you. So we're not going to miss a beat. We're going to continue the momentum. And that's where continuity is key, and I hope you vote for continuity.
Thank you. And Spencer, what would you do on your first day as mayor?
I would lock myself in the room with all of P&Z and the planning and building department, and in a very professional, respectful way, I would figure out what the frick is going on in there. We have 2 permits issued. One was to the guy who has the hole in the ground. I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just saying what is going on. How does that happen? I have local contractors contacting me, telling me they're done making golf course money. They want to be part of the solution, and it is not catering to their needs. We need to address the codes so that the lot behind Whiskey's and behind Smokey's doesn't become a single family residence by default and by paperwork. We need to lessen the impact fees on a certain multifamily and workforce housing scenario. I need to confer with the experts on what they recommend and how we get there quickly. We need to stop the bleeding. Ketchum is a 4-story town, and somebody needs to stick it to that. I don't care if you're a hotel. I don't care if you're workforce housing. We're a 4-story town. We also need to develop a set of codes that's just as confusing as the KURA to make sure that every block doesn't get built out to be that 4-story. How can we convince developers to rename their buildings of the past and tie our history into our future?
Time is up. Thank you. Okay, so another question from the audience. And this one comes from a live stream viewer. Remember, you can enter your questions via the chat. How would you specifically change Ketchum zoning ordinances to encourage and allow additional affordable housing? Spencer.
As I was saying, we've got to address the codes. Yes, they're going to be tricky, but when a developer comes to town, they need to be able to check boxes to get through the system. Yes, they're going to be more restrictive. You're not going to get a floor area ratio over 1. I'm going to want more setbacks, but it's going to be very easy. If you want a variance, it's going to be very hard. We have a community that cares. Every single person in this room, every single person that's watching online cares and wants to have a voice. Let's just shoot them straight. Hey, this is what we accept. Yeah, it's not maxed out, but that's what we accept. If you want to go down the other road, let's go down the other road. The KURA is the most confusing district of who pays for whose sidewalks in this town. We should make something similar to that for how you limit the height on a per block basis. Furthermore, our light industrial zone needs to have increased density. You shouldn't, in Warm Springs, who has over 2 acres and can get an ADU on that? We need to apply ADUs, not for everyone. This is a marketable license that you can get into. This is a free market system. This is not a deed restriction. Deed restriction isn't the answer. Developers hate that. Deed restriction is the great a home that appreciates is the great American bank account. Let's set ourselves up for success in a free market system.
Thank you. Next is Perry. How would you specifically change Ketchum zoning ordinances to encourage and allow additional affordable housing?
Well, it's funny you asked that question because we're missing the P&Z meeting to be here. But I did send in pretty detailed comments on the zoning code, chapter 17.96 and chapter 17.20 late last night, about 11 o'clock last night. So I've been through the zoning code and it's a mess. And I think Spencer's right. It's not one set of rules that applies to everybody, which it should be. I think that we can put in strengthening of our dark skies because it's very easy to game that. I think we can put in some more limitations on short-term rentals. That doesn't go into the zoning code per se, but that needs to be part of our development program here. And I do agree with Spencer that we do need provision for ADUs, but we need to do it in a way that they can't become short-term rentals. So it has to be a way that restricts it to long-term rentals or family use.
Thank you. And now,
Don't clap.
Neil, how would you specifically change Ketchum zoning ordinances to encourage and allow additional affordable housing?
Yeah, and first of all, can I just address something that was said earlier by Spencer? And I think it's really important that we have respectful dialogue, and attacking personnel at the staff is not a way to go, and I would discourage that at all levels. The second is locking people in a room to talking about it, the P&Z Commission, is a violation of open meeting rules. Again, I wouldn't discourage kind of any violation of those open meeting rules. In terms of what we're trying to do, we're doing a lot of things. The good thing is on ADUs, our ADU standards are very liberal. The standards changed in 2015 and allow for a range of units from 300 to 1,200 square feet, and we're seeing more applications of ADUs coming in the door. We're updating our in-lieu housing fees. We've proposed moving them from $238 per square foot to $607 per square foot to encourage people to build rather than just pay in-lieu housing fees. We're looking at establishing minimum density sizes instead of maximum density sizes in the downtown core to basically avoid having those large residential homes in the downtown core. We're looking at restricting lot consolidation, where people can buy 3 lots in a row, combine them in one, and do one mega house in that. We're looking at reevaluating minimum lot sizes in residential zones, and we're requiring on-site units instead of in-lieu housing fees. This is a number of these code changes that we're doing. I'm delighted by the progress we're making.
Thank you. And David, how would you specifically change Ketchum zoning ordinances to encourage and allow additional affordable housing?
Well, as an architect, I came up with a concept of a megastructure that could take care of our housing needs for the next 25 years. And I'm talking about a megastructure that would deal with all levels of democratic price range, so to speak. It would go from dormitory units to top-end dwellings, and it would be the type of thing that we could develop the workforce housing portion of the project first, and then add on to the concept and go up the hill. It would lay against the side of the hill. It would not scar the hill. It is a concept that has been adopted by cities who cannot go out sideways. They have to, at some point in time, go up. I think this is something that needs to be addressed. It's something that should be looked at with an open mind, and it would have a real impact on our housing needs.
Thank you. All right, this is a new question from one of the audience members. They would like to know what each candidate's thoughts are on the Warm Springs Preserve. So what are your thoughts on the Warm Springs Preserve? And David, I think I'm just going to say you this time because I've never chosen you. David, we're starting with you.
Well, it shows what a unique society we have. We've got the most magnificent dog park of any community anywhere. Bob Brennan did a wonderful job, and it's a concept that's it's a wonderful thing to have that, and I think we need to raise the money to maintain that preserve. It's a shame that they couldn't figure out some way to use a portion of that for affordable housing. It maybe just did not fit in the concept, but we have to really find places for the affordable housing.
Thank you. Perry, what are your thoughts on the Warm Springs Preserve?
I think we've been put in kind of a difficult position on that one. According to the Warm Springs Preserve website, the alternative is to keep it a park or up to 440 units of housing in there. And I'm not sure how we would be able to control that development to be useful for what we're trying to achieve as a community. I do agree with David on this. I think it's a real shame that Mr. Brennan couldn't devote, 2 of the 65 acres to community housing. That truly would have been a legacy for Mr. Brennan, and I hope that he might change his mind. I don't know if it's too late, but I'm hoping that the next administration will work with him on doing that. But I personally support it. And I hope that people in the community support it as well.
Thank you. Neil, what are your thoughts on the Warm Springs Preserve?
Well, I think this is just an amazing opportunity for our town. It wasn't part of the agenda, my agenda, but sometimes you just have to seize the day. And when a community member comes forward and says, I want this to be a park, a passive park in perpetuity for our community, and open to the public, we have to seize the opportunity. We can't let perfect get in the way of good, and it is more than good. It is really fantastic, and just seeing another place for our community to connect, whether it be walking their dogs, whether it be doing the frisbee golf, whether it be just a safe place to walk that's in the middle of town. I know we have a lot of space outside, but that is a community connector. People talk, they chat, they share stories, and this is an opportunity that we never thought would come along. 500,000 square foot units were going to be built there. That's what it was zoned for, and now we've got this incredible open space and a development around. And we can always pick holes in what we'd ideally like, but let's celebrate what that developer and Bob Brennan brought to the community. Something that I don't think any of us really expected, and something we should all be very grateful for.
Thank you. And Spencer, what are your thoughts on the Warm Springs Preserve?
My thoughts, not my definite answer. Thank you for my thoughts. We live in a dog park. The whole place is a dog park. We only have so much room for developing housing. That's a shady little nook over there that you couldn't sell a luxury home in. I just want to know, can we ask for an acre or two? The deed's not going to be recorded till the final sale. But if the community wants it, I would listen to the community. I can set my personal beliefs to the side and listen to my constituents. I tell you what, financially, it's a heck of a deal. $3 a square foot on 64 acres when we're experiencing the highest land prices since 2008 in town. Everything's selling for $150, $250 a square foot in town. That's a huge deal. Can we make it happen? I bet we will. If everybody wants to chip in what they can to keep open space in their backyard, there's some big money. If it helps us live on America's time frame of hustling, rustling around, you don't have time to drive to Adams Gulch anymore, then cool. I think that's great. Do we have any water right? Can we put ponds there and save water there to put it in the stream later? Can we blow that snow up the mountain and increase the snow that we're holding on the mountain? Can we have ponds there for helicopters to dip in and put out spot fires? I don't know. I think it's an opportunity.
Thank you. This next question has to do with the ongoing pandemic. What is the mayor's responsibility, and how could the mayor help to continue to navigate through the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic? Perry.
Well, obviously, it's a very difficult situation. It shouldn't have lasted this long. I think my position on this is what the community's position is, which is I'm for vaccination. I'm vaccinated. I think over 75% of our community is vaccinated. Vaccine is now available for younger people. I think that's fantastic. That's great for the schools. If everybody was vaccinated, we wouldn't need these things. And I hate this just as much as everybody else does. It's one of the challenges is that we're not alone and that visitors come in. and we don't know if they're vaccinated or not. I think we should do what other major tourist places do and require what we went through this evening to come in here, that you should have to show the proof of your vaccination to come into Ketchum or into the Wood River Valley. That's my stand on it.
Thank you. David, what do you see as the mayor's responsibility? How can the mayor help the community to continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I think the mayor is acting on the source of advice, and I don't know where he's getting that source of advice, but he has to get out of the medical business. He's not in the medical business. He can just do what he thinks is the best thing for our community. I am vaccinated myself. I, like Perry, do not like using the masks. I don't believe in mandates. I think that's against the American way of life. And I'm concerned about the fact they're talking about vaccinating children from 5 to 11 years old. It's a horrible, horrible situation, and we're just going to have to make our way through it with the right attitude and healthy living.
Thank you. Spencer, what is the mayor's responsibility, and how can the mayor help the community to continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thanks, Jenny. I think the mayor's responsibility is to listen to his constituents, put personal beliefs aside when it needs to happen, and rely on the experts. It's hard to get a call back in this town, but when you're the mayor, I'm hoping that happens quite regularly. Our hospital workers are living in RVs outside the hospital, so I defer to them. You tell me my business. I don't have an MD. I just know that when I break my leg up on the ski mountain, I want to get fixed up by the best doctor around in a safe environment. I think it's a small ask to wear a mask. I think our community wants vaccines. Our community wants masks. I'll be honest with you, did I want to get the vaccine? No. Did I do it? Yeah, because I want to be a good neighbor. And when that becomes applicable, I want my neighbors to be a good neighbor to me, and that's how we create a solid community. I'm okay with a mask. It doesn't bug me.
And Neil, what is the mayor's responsibility? How can the mayor help the community to continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. You know, from the start of this pandemic, I've really tried to depoliticize COVID and just try and find a path that the community supports. I've been trying to model a respectful dialogue on this, which has been challenging throughout all of this. Remember, we're trying to balance different needs. We've got the physical health of our community, but we also have the economic health, and really importantly, the mental health. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to emphasize. What is the impact on our mental health? Because this is a strain. This is a strain for us all. And I'm delighted by the response that we've got from our community. I'm delighted by how well we've done. It's obviously super sad when someone passes because of it. But I know that we've put in front of council a number of different measures. And I know that we've always had discussions and debates, and we very rarely have had any unanimous decision. And that just goes to show how difficult it is. And that's when I'm delighted to lean on a council who can navigate this and make decisions for our community. Because what I have to do in my role as mayor is to put the options in front of the council, have that debate, and come up with a healthy, responsible solution for our community.
Thank you. All right, this is a new question now about the economy. This person writes, 6 economic development studies have recommended the city or valley pursue a diverse entrepreneurial economy rather than solely positioning us as a tourist town. What is your view? Oops. David.
Well, for 2 years in a row, we've been voted the best destination ski resort in the United States. So I don't think we ought to get out of that business too quickly. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are living here, having the ability to conduct business in your pajamas at home before you go skiing is wonderful, and there's a lot of business being conducted here. Having the Allen Company showing up, making global decisions, shows the type of entrepreneurs that do come, and they love this community. They've told their friends about this community, and now all their friends are living here too. It's we have to stay in the hospitality business, and we've got to keep doing the best we can with what we have, and the cash should be flowing. It's just a matter of taking care of the people who take care of the people, and keep that as a part of our culture that perpetuates itself.
Thank you. Next up is Spencer. Spencer, 6 economic development studies have recommended the city or valley pursue a diverse entrepreneurial economy rather than solely positioning us as a tourist town. What is your view?
Who did the studies? Were they peer reviewed or were these Instagram memes? That's just my first question for everything. What's my view? I wish. I'm hopeful. Smith Optics, invented here in Ketchum. Scott Sports, First Light, just sold to a corporate parent. Decked, Idaho, Wild Ride. The list goes on. Remote working, yeah, it's causing a little housing mix-up, but it also brought a ton of young people to town. I want to get a remote working job and be able to live here, and I want my friends to be able to do it. I want Ketchum to get back on the entrepreneurship. We do have the Allen Conference here. There are plenty of huge bridges to be built from this town. Let's build them. I also deeply understand the tourism game. I've been working for the last 10 years hand in hand with the Sun Valley Marketing Alliance through 4 different heads: Greg, Zach, Arlene, and Scott. We have got a great group over there that's doing targeted ads to any destination that we're gonna offer flights from. We're not shotgun blast marketing. We're doing targeted cell phone data-based ads. The Marketing Alliance bought data from AirDNA that gives us a real shot at analyzing how things are working here. I just also like to point out in my last 10 seconds that we experience more summer visitation than winter, and that's not true in a lot of ski towns.
Thank you. Neil, 6 economic development studies have recommended the city or valley pursue a diverse entrepreneurial economy rather than solely positioning us as a tourist town. What is your view?
My view is if we create vibrancy, if we create a sense of place, if we create a community that people want to be part of it, then businesses will form. We don't need to take action to encourage entrepreneurs. We just take actions to create a wonderful place. And we're doing that. We're creating a sense of place. We're creating a sense of community. And if we can also work on the housing that will support those businesses so they grow from being stuck wearing their pajamas to actually out and recruiting people, that could be a very exciting time. But our job is not to tell entrepreneurs, go to trade shows and say, bring your business here. We don't need to do that. We need to focus on what our roots are, which is tourism, and making sure people are happy, healthy, and housed, because then when people come here, they have a great experience, they interact with the locals, and they want to be part of it, and they'll find a way to make it happen. So I really try and focus on a sense of place, a sense of vibrancy, and a sense of community. That'll take care of the economics.
Thank you. And Perry, 6 economic development studies have recommended the city or valley pursue a diverse entrepreneurial economy rather than solely positioning us as a tourist town. What is your view?
Yes. I think that we are a tourist town. I mean, most of us got here on our first visit as a tourist, okay? And we are a town that has a lot of immigrants in it from that hook. This is a beautiful place. Everybody's going to want to be here. and many people make their living on tourism in this town, and I think it's important to value that. That being said, as we've solely focused on promoting tourism in the town, that's what's led to a lot of the challenges that we have today. And it is a 3 jobs or 3 houses kind of situation, and having a middle that can diversify the economy away from tourism's cyclical boom bust, I think is extremely valuable for the entire valley, not just Ketchum, and will create more of that vibrancy and resiliency. And I think that if COVID taught us anything, we're in a unique age of the world where you can, as a knowledge worker, you can work anywhere. And I would like to make sure that we have the office space here in town, because there's no office space. One company came to town and they're renting out what was supposed to be affordable housing as office space. And that's not right. So I'm out of time, sorry.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have time to squeeze in 2 more questions before final statements from the candidates. So that's what I'm going to try to do. This next question is, what prepares you for the financial and administrative duties of the office? Perry.
I am a numbers geek. I mean, I am a chartered financial analyst for over 25 years, 26 years now. I was a stock analyst before. Numbers are where I live, and I've been through the city's budget with a fairly fine-tooth comb with what's available. I don't know that anybody running for mayor has more financial, like I sit on the audit committee of a publicly traded company. Like, I think I have a lot of experience in this area. Thanks.
Thank you. Spencer, what prepares you for the financial and administrative duties of this office?
First of all, Jenny, there's no question that this is my biggest weakness, right? All the budgets that I've managed, $300,000 is the biggest one, and I kept it above the line myself. So yeah, I'm gonna tack on a couple zeros. But I've spent 50 grand in a day on a photo shoot, and I manage them all for myself. What I will do to accomplish my weaknesses here is rely on the expert. The treasurer writes the checks. The checks don't come off the mayor's computer. This is gonna be a struggle for me, and I'm up for this challenge. But every time I ask a real question behind closed doors, somebody goes, wow, Spence, I've never thought of it like that, and we're gonna need 5 people in the room. Get the treasurer, get the clerk, get the attorney, and get the head of that department. What I can speak to is how we're gonna utilize the lot tax and pay for historically things that we're paying for police and fire to free up housing money. I know the city budget is restricted on how much it can grow every year, and I will have to lean on the department heads to best inform myself of how to make the decisions. But the number one position of the mayor is not writing the checks, it's providing the global overview and pushing things down the pipeline of the agenda to be voted on by city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil, what prepares you for the financial and administrative duties of the office?
Well, it's the most important decision we make, and it's really the council decision, and we prepare it, and it's a $32 million budget. I've been involved in numbers all my life. I have a mechanical engineering degree, but I pivoted very quickly to an MBA. I worked in finance throughout my career. I currently advise small businesses. So I'm looking at balance sheets and P&Ls all the time. I'm very comfortable with them. I'm very proficient with them. I spent a lot of my youth crunching numbers and Excel spreadsheets and pro formas, balance sheets, what have you. But actually, while it's an important, I love the fact that I know this stuff and I can read financial statements very comfortably. I can read annual reports very easily. The whole idea really is to kind of synthesize that down and explain that to the community. How are our priorities, how we advocate for one priority over another in our budget, because allocation of a scarce resource, which is what budgeting is all about, is really about selling that idea and saying, we're going to take these COVID funds, we're going to put it in a strategic initiative fund that's going to be directed towards housing and transportation. the communication of that idea is kind of more important than actually the nitty-gritty of the numbers, although I know them well.
Thank you. And David, what prepares you for the financial and administrative duties of the office?
Well, every project that I've worked on in my career obviously has a budget, and the client is obviously trying to get the most he can for the limited budget that he himself prescribed or she prescribed. The city seems to be operating very well within a budget. As I move into that administrative position, there will be changes made, and I look to the treasurer and where the money needs to be allotted at the time, and with the consideration of new projects, hiring of new people, and that will flow around, and I will look to the financial people in the administration to help me through that.
Thank you. This will be the last question that I pose, and then each candidate will have 1 minute to give closing remarks, but 90 seconds again for your answer to this question. What makes a vibrant downtown community core? What are the specific elements that make it vibrant? David.
It's the people. It's the people who walk through the streets. It's the people who come to the heart of our community, Ketchum. They expect to be visiting a magnificent vacation land that they want to move to as soon as they possibly can. I've seen the challenges to the housing has created some concerns in all the restaurants. I hear complaints about the fact that service is slow, and for the first time I realized that there's no place to dance here in Ketchum. And that ain't right. That's not right. That's not right. Life is a dance, the pursuit of joy. That's what it's all about, and we'll get that back. We are the people, and we will get that back.
Thank you. Neil, what makes a vibrant downtown community core? What are the specific elements that make it vibrant?
Well, this is something I've worked on from day one, and it's about the people, first and foremost. You got to get people living and working and staying the evening here, not just driving south. So you get people here is the first. The second is you get events. And we've worked a lot on amplifying events, creating a sense of place. Of course, we got the town square, which was involved in 14 years ago. But now you've got that sense of place. Now you've got to activate it. And so we have done Sounds of September. We've done, artists there in various ways. Obviously, Ketchum Alive has a life of its own. I love supporting that. I love jazz in the park. But activating the space is really important. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of planning and a lot of time, but it's so worth it because it brings people together. They run into friends, they meet new people, they create the sense of community, and there's something special about I don't know, for me it's that Sounds of September when you've got an artist on stage, people are sitting around, they may be bringing a cocktail, who knows, but they're having a good time and they're creating memories, and that's what we're doing. We're creating memories because we're activating spaces and we're building connection and community.
Thank you. Perry, what makes a vibrant downtown community core? What are the specific elements that make it vibrant?
A mix of uses. I mean, you use the word community. Community is always around people, and so it has to be a place that people want to be. And I think Neil's made a great case for the events downtown. We've got Nightmare on Main Street coming up, and that's one of the funkier events in town, and I hope people show up for that and help support that. It's having a mix of uses in the city core. You need to preserve your retail and protect your retail. Retail is under threat. And if we don't protect our retail, people are going to do it in Twin or online, and we won't have access to what we want every day in our local town. People in town is definitely important, but not every resident of Ketchum is going to be able to live in the CC1 or CC2 zoning codes. So having mixed-use buildings, having a degree of density that has retail on the first floor and maybe some affordable units on top and maybe some really nice things on top, has a mix of office space in there so that people can connect through office work, having coffee shops, having the Argyros, having whiskeys, having restaurants. You know, it's the mix that really makes a downtown vibrant. So, but you have to be able to get there. And once you're there, you have to be able to park. And so we need to take it all into account as we're designing the downtown.
Thank you. And Spencer, what makes a vibrant downtown community core? What are the specific elements that make it vibrant?
I think one specific element to avoid that is going to crush our vibrancy is the Aspenization effect. And we're right on the cusp of that happening. Our codes are catering to a building that's going to sell super expensive penthouses and build limited commercial on the first floor that's going to rent to one single well-funded business that hardly has to be there. We need to mandate small office spaces so that remote workers can get out of their houses, so that less well-off funded businesses can have a place to go. If these people are working inside Ketchum and they're jumping off their bike or grabbing a skateboard and going to buy a cup of joe somewhere or buy a sandwich somewhere, then that's vibrancy. We need to keep the Ketchum streets accessible to close down for street parties. Everybody enjoys that. I've seen all of you people here at those street parties. I like Leroy's. We could put a little guide shack next to Leroy's where to book an adventure. But yeah, we need to protect some commercial options down there to have businesses functioning within our residential core. We need less stop signs on some streets. I've been driving around this town way too long to four-way stop everywhere. Yes, we're going to need some big ones that remind everyone where we're going, but we can increase traffic flow in some ways. We have a lot of big trucks driving around here, but we also have a big biker population, and we need to mix that in so that you can bike around town if you want, but if you got a car full of screaming children, you can also park your Suburban right there and unleash them at the park.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, and thank you, audience. Thank you, everyone who has submitted questions. We're not done yet. I do want to say this is a community that participates. We had 150 total questions submitted. Obviously, we only got to a few of those. We tried to cover a range of territory, but all of the questions will be delivered to each of the candidates so that you can learn what the community is wondering about. So thank you, everyone, for participating, for asking your questions, for caring about the community. And now we have 1 minute closing statements from each candidate. So Carter, 1 minute. And we will start with Neil Bradshaw.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Argyros. Thank you, Community Library. Thank you, Spencer, Dave, Perry. Participation is key, and it's so great to see our community showing up, and please continue to show up for city council meetings and whoever gets elected, because this is how good public policy is made, because then we hear from the community. This evening has highlighted 3 things. First, housing initiatives will remain a #1 priority for our town, whether it be development of additional tax credit housing, private partnerships, zoning and code changes. Second, preserving the heart and soul of Ketchum will be another priority. Finally, infrastructure investments and capital improvements are imperative to our town's success. We need to allocate capital to ensure we maintain and enhance our streets, water, waste, etc. Can I get a little longer, because spending time thanking people, a little harsh. Look, I'm determined. I'd like to have a little longer here because I think it's important. I'm determined to see the finish line on a number of projects. I want to see Warm Springs Reserve secured as a passive public park. I don't want to afford a pause in momentum. Myself and the council and staff are working well together. If I'm re-elected as mayor of Ketchum, we'll have the opportunity to continue the momentum that we've created over the last 4 years. The momentum was achieved because of the support of the council, city staff, the Ketchum voters, and taxpayers. And for that support, I'm truly grateful. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. And I really appreciate it.
Okay. Each candidate will get an additional 30 seconds. 90 seconds now, Carter.
Got it.
90 seconds. Closing remarks now, Perry.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming and for everybody who zoomed in. And I think you really did achieve your goal of fostering a productive and civil discourse. And that's what I really value for this event. And so thank you for that. I have a 35-year track record of success in turning around organizations that were in danger of losing their way. And I know how to get results. I know that it's through listening and learning and working with people in collaborative fashion to achieve common goals. I'm not going to take all the 90 seconds. I do have plans that address our short-term rental issue, that address our need for locals first housing. They're on my website, boyleforketchum.com. I really enjoy that the community's voice is being heard and engaged in this, and I'm always available to talk to people about ways that we can elevate this community. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Spencer, you have 90 seconds for your closing statements.
Big thanks to the Arduous staff, Sam up in the booth, Alex, thank you guys, Mike at the door, Casey, Margaret, I love this place. We donate a lot of money to the Sawtooth Abbey here, Homegrown Film Festival on December 4th. Please show up, it'll be our 5th year. This place is wired up like a CNBC news studio. This is intelligent development. This speaks to our appreciation of the arts. This speaks to our donor base. While I do miss rummaging around the old Next Stage Theater costume closet because it was better than the gold mine, we've come a long way. This place used to be a used car lot. Please view any lack of experience that you see in me as a lack of ties to organizations or ties to big donors that request favors. I promise to make no promises. We have a real opportunity here. Are we going to live in a town that opposes the expansion of the community library? Or are we going to live in a town that's forward-thinking, open, and appreciates everyone's different views? When are we going to trust ourselves to govern ourselves? I'm a product of this community, and I want to give back, and I want to help. Every campaign on this stage was run by the youth. It was run by the chicks in this town who do marketing. We're already doing all the work. We are the youth. Let us lead. Jackson has a homegrown mayor. Vail has a homegrown mayor. They're women. Please go home tonight, meditate on it, think about it, listen in to Ampy Hamilton, Ain't No Shame.
And final closing remarks. Closing statements from David Bavaretto. You have 90 seconds.
The first time I came here, I went skiing in Squaw Valley with George Matsumoto, and this was 50 plus years ago. I went skiing with George. I woke up the next morning in Sun Valley, and I realized I had come to heaven. This place is just, it's magnificent, it's beautiful. Traveling this last week to Park City and to Jackson Hole gave me the willies. I don't know how those towns operate. There's just a collage of buildings and streets that go hither, thither, and yonder. And it was such a pleasure to drive into this magnificent simplicity of the Wood River Valley. We are really fortunate to have 4 people here who care very much for the valley and are willing to do what we can to make it good. I don't think you can make a bad decision. Make an intelligent decision and vote with your hearts, and thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Again, thank you to our candidates, Perry Boyle, David Baravetto, Neil Bradshaw, Spencer Cordovano. Thank you, audience. Have a good evening.
I saw you're going to be teaching yoga next week.